Welcome to Wired In, the show that connects you to practical insights on the technologies and innovations shaping the future of industry. I'm your host, Steven Humphrey. On this episode, I'm joined by Henrik Dahlgren, Digital Transformation Manager at Hitachi Energy and a leader focused on helping drive digital change across a global organization. With hands-on experience at the intersection of technology, process, and business transformation, Henrik brings valuable perspective on what it takes to turn digital strategy into real-world impact. I got his insight on how to best scale a digital transformation strategy, what it takes to move away from siloed data and systems, and how to most effectively bring teams together for lasting enterprise-wide change. Let's dive in. Many companies talk about digital transformation as a technology program. But in your experience, where does it really start? Is it the people, the process, or the data?
I would say it starts with the data, or rather the lack of organized and structured data. Only when you have the right data accessible to the right people at the right time can you really run a global enterprise like ours effectively. You need to have the global view to be able to plan your production on a global scale. Now, that being said, processes, of course, generate data. And that's where your systems comes in. Only when people work in the same way and follow the same processes can you rely on the data that they generate.
And when we think about the hierarchy of people, process, and data, the data at the foundation obviously is paramount. And to your point, processes built on top of that, then people are using those processes, generating more data, and then it starts to compound. So having that really strong process and system in place for that foundational data is paramount, it sounds like.
Absolutely, yes.
Now, you've spoken about moving from fragmented systems to unified global traceability. What made that shift necessary, and what changed once the data started to connect?
Well, we operate more than 40 factories in 17 different countries. So on that scale, you cannot work with fragmented data.
Sure.
You have to organize everything, make sure everyone works with the same processes, the same systems. Otherwise, it's never going to work.
And when you think about across different disciplines, right? I mean, you have mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, hardware, software. Does that fragmentation begin to, compound with the complexity of users across the organization with those fragmented systems and tools that they're using as well, potentially?
Absolutely, yeah. We have your business systems and quality systems and product lifecycle management systems all have to work together. And it's really important that you have one single source of truth for your data. Otherwise, people will be working with different versions of reality, and that just creates a lot of waste.
Yeah, and as someone who's worked in industry, I can attest to the single source of truth challenge when one person says, well, this is right, but the other person says, well, I have something different. And then that starts to kind of explode as your products evolve, right?
Exactly.
Now, at what point did you realize it wasn't just about improving individual functions, but about rethinking how the enterprise operates end to end?
Well, actually, for a long time, we did exactly that. We were working with fragmented data in different departments. We even had a saying that if only Hitachi Energy knew what Hitachi Energy knows.
Right.
So we had these island solutions, and then we had the introduction of systems to share information easily.
Sure.
Like cloud platforms, SharePoint, and whatever. And that made the information available, but not organized in a structured way. And that's when we saw the need for this transformation. We have to make the data not just available, but structured and organized so people can use it in an effective way.
And that also really, I think, with the products you guys are making, as a product is moving through your product development process, right? As you're evolving the design, that end-to-end traceability, the connection from one team to the next, and less of that kind of throw it over the wall and more of like people know what's coming, why it's coming, who's responsible to do what and when. How much of that also maybe helped you streamline some of your business or remove cost or make you guys be more efficient?
Well, when everyone works with the same data, with the same version of the truth, then you reduce a lot of the waste in this whole process. And you don't have to worry about somebody creating an instruction for an outdated version somewhere in a factory in Australia or Vietnam or wherever.
Right, no, totally makes sense. Now, transformation at your scale means global teams, legacy systems, and deeply embedded ways of working. What was the hardest thing to change, technology or mindset?
Well, if you ask me, technology. When you have a good technical solution, a system that people really like to use, then the mindset changes naturally.
Sure.
If you have a tool that somebody can actually be effective with, and they enjoy working with it, and it solves the job they have to do in a better way than they did before, then you've won.
Yeah, and I think it's a great way to think about the usage and adoption of technology can help change that mindset.
Absolutely.
Versus trying to bring people to something that maybe they're not prepared for, or that's out of their wheelhouse, or
That's a much more difficult journey to do.
Sure. No, that makes total sense. If you had one piece of advice to give companies starting their digital transformation journey, what should they get right first and why?
In my opinion, the master data. Get your data right first. Then look at your processes. Make sure you fully understand what's actually happening in your company. Make sure that it's perfectly clear what people are actually doing. And ask why. Why are we doing things this way?
Sure.
What can we do differently? And listen to your users. Listen to their problems. Why are they doing things the way they are doing them today? And don't just copy paste things from an old system into another just to harmonize.
Sure.
That doesn't help. Try to improve along the way.
And I couldn't agree more with the concept of ask why, right? And like kind of decomposing problems and the challenges with these systems and the processes you have in place and getting into those first principles. Why are we, we've always done it this way. Why? Well, because we didn't have this type of technology 30 years ago. So being able to rethink, with a first principle lens, I think is also a really key part of that.
Exactly. When you hear that phrase, we've always done it this way, that's a perfect opportunity for improving things.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Henrik, thank you so much for our conversation today. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Our conversation with Henrik today was one for the books. It's always incredible to speak with PTC customers about their digital transformation experiences and results. If you're ready to explore more on this topic, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button to stay wired in. We'll see you next time.